Okay, folks, a gracious good evening. Tonight we tie an Elk Hair Caddis. What just 4 ingredients? Well, hook, and wire, thread, dubbing, most of the techniques you've used. This fly is was invented by Al Troth, I think in 1957. And it actually looks, has a profile much like a caddis fly. I would suggest y'all look, Google caddis fly, see what they look like. Their profile is kind of a tent, so their wings lay back along the body like a V. And then when we tie this fly, as you saw, we have this actually makes the fly easier to see in the water. And then this gives you the profile, the hair along the edge. So that's what we'll be after. This one, even though it's fairly simple, can be hard to get a nice look and have one that, first 2 dozen I tied, about 2 casts, they fell apart. So that comes from not managing your thread tension or too much hair on the wing. But you've done this kind of a tie. Where we diverge from the Mickey fin is in building this little head. And we had a discussion last week of wire. And wire does add weight. I have actually taken to tying these with tippet, 5X or 6X tippet rather than wire. You can't see it, but that's lighter, less dense than wire. And I think it actually is more resistant to abrasion by the trout. And the reason you want to put wire on these is the stem on the hackle, trout bites it once, it breaks, you don't have wire, your fly flies apart. So you don't want that. Now the other thing about, a couple other things about material, interesting dubbing Joe gave us. It's a little spikier. I like the super fine dubbings. They're very they're very easy to dub and they're good on dry flies, what they're made for. We might ask why we have elk hair. You have a slice. Well, if it wasn't elk hair, we couldn't call it an Elk Hair Caddis, so that'd be the first thing. But mainly the reason these flies float well is the hair is hollow. And not like a straw, but the cells are hollow, and so the hair floats pretty well. So in the fly, if you compare this to mosquito, we have a lot more things floating the fly than we had with the mosquito. So this fly, as it is, can hold the wire, or you can do what I do, switch over to a tippet material. Now, the reason for the elk hair as opposed to a deer hair is it's hard. I really have a hard time, but the base, if you all look, when you have some time, I think you probably have deer hair. Look at the bottom. The base of these is much thinner than it is with a deer hair. So a deer hair is going to flare more. And we want a little flare, but not a lot of flare. And that's why we use elk hair. Another little handy dandy tip I've taken to writing on the back of these patches what they are, because sooner or later I lose the bag. So that's elk. So I brought my own patch. What happens with these is I mentioned earlier, and you'll see it when we get to tying, but I'd mentioned earlier that one of the things that will cause you a lot of trouble is if you get too much hair, so every patch is different in the under fur and the thickness of the bottom. So once you start working on a patch, you get the hang of how much you got to cut off for that patch. You get the next patch, you're going to relearn it, because every every patch is different. I'm looking at the one Joe gave us, and what I notice is, see all these really long tips? This is, very uneven material. So there's going to be a lot of loss in this one compared to other ones. Mine's not quite as bad. Tips are start out a little more even, but I got more fur underneath it than he's got. So that's where my losses are going to come in. So we'll see how that goes. But if you're going to make a mistake on the hair, it'd be better to have not enough than too much. If you get too much, what'll happen when you're flaring it, it's going to roll on you, and then you're kind of over. So if you think you've stacked too much, it's okay to pull some out, set it aside, and that's just a practice thing. I can't tell you how many. It just depends on the hair. I also use deer hair for this in some ties. In fact, that's a caddis. That's an elk hair. Some of the deer have a fine bottom, the coastal deer. And so I use them from time to time because the hair's a little darker and has a little more pattern to it. So I like that. The other thing, I don't know if we've talked about it, but since we've tied hackle, you generally want the length of the hackle to be about the gap of the hook. Now, we don't do that in here just because it's a big pain in the neck to sort through feathers. So the feathers that came in my kit are just, the tips are a little long. But when you get to tying, you want to look for something with the right length of hackle. So I think that was all we needed to say at the beginning. Probably didn't need to say any of it, but we said it. Okay, let's switch over to camera. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the hook in. And in my case, I hope the jaws of this vise don't go foing. I've got to replace these jaws. They're getting old and pretty worn, so you don't always hold the hook real well. So if it goes foing, you'll forgive me. Hopefully it'll hang in there for the evening. All right, so as we usually do, we start at the front. Colors. I like tan on these. Yellow is a good color. There's a caddis called the October caddis. It's orange. So we want to come to the middle of the hook. I'll drag out my wire here. Like I say, I usually use tippet material, but I'm going to go ahead and use wire so you can see it. I'm using the small wire. I probably should have used, or I'm using extra small. I probably should have used just small. So at the middle of the hook, I'm going to go ahead and tie in the wire. If I can see it, there we go. And we'll just go to the back of the hook. Okay, so at the back of the hook, we'll have the wire tied in, and then we're going to dub back to the front. One of the things I like to do here, just because it's quicker in terms of getting the fly tied, is and we'll go ahead and tie the feather in at the front and then wind it to the back, which is a common technique. We haven't done it, but same hackle. You just start at the front, go to the back, and that gives you an automatic counter wrap. So as before, I'm going to spread out the dubbing. It's about how much I have. Okay. Bit long. You don't need a lot of room up here. You'll see why at the end, but you have to leave enough room because we got to mount a wing and get the head up there. So we'll take our. I also like to wrap this wrap the hackle upside down. And what do I mean by that? The hackle has a curved side, a shiny side, and a bottom side that's not so shiny. And the way I want to wrap it is so the shiny side's towards the back of the hook. And the reason I do that is that if you wrap it the normal way, the feathers will bend over and then the wire is going to trap more of them. So if you turn it upside down with the cup forward, or the shiny side to the back, you're not going to trap as many feathers when we counter wrap the wire. Okay. So we'll kind of spiral this to the back. Your feathers are a little shorter than mine, so just have to, how many of our wraps you can get in. Whoops. Be fine. And when we get to the back, we got this transfer thing going. Do one more. Okay, so you want to hold this up, get your wire and catch it. Now you've got it. See, it's not going anywhere now as long as you hold the wire tight. I like to do a second wrap over that, and then you just go ahead and bring your wire to the front. And like I said, these wind up being pretty accommodating, and they get out of the way if I wrap it the way I wrap it.
Brother, your beard's getting in the way.
I'm sorry, what did I do?
Your beard is getting in the way.
Sorry, guys. I'm used to sitting in front and it's kind of off to the side with the camera here. I'm trying to stay out of the way. Pardon me. Thanks for the advice, and we'll break this off. Okay, now comes the art. So I'm going to use this patch, my own patch, just because I've been using it. So that's a clump about like that. And you can see I got a lot of long ones and a lot of short ones. Maybe I need a few more. So I'll show you, cleaning it is quite an art form. Okay, so I'm gonna go there. That's probably too much, but we'll see what happens. I'm gonna cut that clump off. Yeah, I think that is too much. I'm gonna do just a little less. I'm here now. Okay. Okay, see if I can. And what you want to do is hold the back end like that. Take your other hand and pull it down towards the tip, and you kind of feel it fall off, and you look at all that junk that came out of there. That's all stuff we're not going to use. That's all short, and it just mess up your wing. So we'll get rid of that. And yeah, I should have kept what I had before. So I'm a little short, so I'm going to grab another bit. That's not quite enough. Get a little more. Hold the back, pull it down, and that's all junk. I'll put this with the other, and then we're looking pretty good. What a mess. Okay, let's see my stacker. Where did I set it? There it is. I got a few long ones. I pull the long ones out too. So when I go in the stacker, it's looking like this. Okay. And the more of that junk you get out, the better your stack will be. Let's see. Okay, that's what you want. So now we're going to measure that to just about to the back of the hook, right? It lines up with the curved part of the hook. Oh, I forgot to cut this off. Let's see if I can break it. Wish me luck. Oops. Ah, we broke it. Good. All right, back of the hook. Now, so we set that down. We want to pinch that good and hard. We're going to come over, loose wrap, and now I want to hold the back solid and let the front flare. Oh no, I forgot. I'm not using my I forgot the thread I'm using. You can pull harder with that UTC thread than you can with this stuff. Put that back in the stacker. Yeah, I forgot this stuff breaks a little earlier than the UTC thread. Okay. So I won't get quite the flare, which is okay. So we want to pinch that up on top. Hold this. Put a few wraps in there. And I kind of go back and forth, make like an X. Okay. And hold it tight, pull these up, throw some wraps under here, and then it will benefit us. Oops, I didn't bring thought I brought a half hitch tool, but I don't see one, so I'll throw a half hitch. So you probably want to throw a half hitch on here for the next step. So we want to bring the thread over the wing. So the thread's now between the wing and this mess up here. You want to take about a third of that mess up here and pull it back. Couple wraps. Pull another clump back, couple wraps, and you don't want to walk forward. You got to, okay, and then a couple wraps here. And get your half hitch tool and throw a half hitch on her. Okay. Now we're going to make the head. So we pull that up and a little ways above, parallel the eye, just cut it. And then we go behind the head and we go ahead. Now this would be a good place to use Bob's technique, get your glue and throw a little glue on the thread, but we throw a few. Yeah, that's why we do two of these. I lost it. Okay. Throw another one on there, a couple of them. There we go. Should be okay. And so you see the wing runs along the more or less along the body. I like a little more flare. I'm going to throw my own thread on there. See if it'll flare better. Okay. Okay. So let's get our hooks in the vise. And we want to start the thread and go to the middle of the hook. And we'll wait there. Shouldn't take long for everybody to get there, and then we'll get our wire out. Are you ready? So let's tie in our wire and go to the back of the hook. Okay, looks like we're ready. There's how much dubbing I plan to use. So fan it out a little bit. A little too much, but we'll be all right. Okay, so dub in a little body there.
Most of you will have a tendency to use way too much dubbing. And
Yeah,
you're
like
not
I
going to get
just
it
did.
tight enough. You want to wind a tight little noodle on that thread with your fingers. Just twist it and just use a little bit. Should
Yeah,
be
I'm gonna
thinner
put-
than the stem of your bobbin.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw on a little super fine so you can see what that looks like. So there's a little wisp of super fine, which probably enough.
Okay, we're ready now. Go ahead. And you're coming across fine, so don't worry about it.
Okay, that's good. Right, remember we're gonna tie. So I'm gonna tie it so the shiny side, the dark side is towards the back of the hook, and that another thing you want to do when you're dubbing, when you're hackling, is if you leave a little empty stem, you won't get the feathers or the barbs headed towards the back of the hook or splaying all over. So you really want to kind of let the stem start winding before you hit barbs. And this guy's fighting me here. There he goes. So I'm going to go ahead and go all the way through the counter wrap. So get to the back, the wire, catch him. I missed him. Got it that time. Okay, and then we just bring the counter wrap up to this is where I can't see what I'm doing with this angle.
And you
We
guys
just-
have shorter feathers.
Yeah, you're gonna have
Don't be
to,
afraid. Don't be afraid to use your.
use your hackle pliers and probably a little wider spirals than I'm using. So get there, break that off, trim your feather end off, and we'll wait to put the wing on.
Should these hackles be about 3/4 inch off the center of the hook? These seem pretty long.
They are long with their, that's all I had available at the time.
No, I figured, free is free, but normally we would want them a little bit shorter.
No, you want them just a hair longer than the bend of the hook.
Then the
So
gap.
you want them just
yeah.
a hair longer than the gap. You want them to stick below the gap, but not very much. Looks like we're ready to move on, Mike.
Okay, I wanna back my thread up a little more. I wanna be right up next to where I started wrapping. Okay, so now we gotta pick a clump of hair and clean it. Got a patch off here. So I got a clump about that big. Gonna pull it towards the front and then I hold it tight on the tips and that's all the junk I pulled out of there. And, you know. And I got a few long ones in there. So I'll pull couple of those out. And I think I'm ready to stack. And when I take it out of the stacker, I like to, my last couple of taps, I leave a gap. If I angle the stacker up, I can pull it off and I get the nice hair. So why don't you guys go ahead and stack and then we'll do the tie on. Get your clumps clean and get them stacked.
I think everyone looks ready.
Okay, so we're going to, should be nice and stacked. We're going to pull that out of the stacker, transfer it over to our right hand and measure. And we want to measure just just almost to the back of the hook. Now I reach up here with my left hand and get a good pinch on it. And you really want to hold it tight with that hand. Throw a couple of wraps. Oops, I forgot something here. I want to spin my thread to get it tightened up. I don't want it flat. So spin it clockwise looking down. Take a couple of wraps. And this clump just doesn't want to. Couple of X wraps here. Lift up the front, lock it in. Yeah, I got too big of a clump. It's wanting to roll on me, but I think I can hold it. Okay, let's see if you can get a wing set here. When you got it set, you might want to throw a couple of half hitches on the front just because of the monkeying around we're going to do next.
Looks like they're all ready.
Oh, way to go, guys. Okay, so we're going to take about a third of these, pull them back, and then we'll wrap right over the other wraps. And we'll do that again. We'll do that again. And then you want to throw a couple of half hitches on there again. Or whip finish. And we'll finish her up. Okay, get everything anchored. Get your rat's nest made in the front. This should really lock down your hair. And don't cut your thread. We still got a whip finish in our future.
Kind of looks like we're there, Mike.
All righty, so now what we want to do is kind of pull this up. and cut it or parallel to the hook eye. We get a nice little head. And it's got a few stragglers that you can trim those up. And then we'll put a whip finish behind the head. And this is where it'd be good to use Bob's trick. Throw a little glue on that.
So we looking at trimming it down to about 1/8 of an inch long.
Yeah, just not too short, not too long, about 1/8, I guess.
Remember, if you pin Mike's thing, you can have, it'll be full screen. You'll be able to see it better how the proportions.
And I have a little too much hair there. I'd prefer it to be a little thinner, but if I had any more hair, I just spun it and had to start again. Now, I generally tie these 12 to 18. I don't do many 12s. Most of my tie are 14 and 16s.